Hey, what's up, everybody? First video of 2022. I've been absent for a little while, but we are back, and I was really hoping the first video was going to be able to be a firmware update 2.4 for the Headrush pedal board and the other two devices. But as of right now, Headrush has not given a release date for that update. So instead, we're going to do something that I promised actually quite a while ago, close to when I first started this channel, and started doing just kind of like dialing amp videos, which is the Soldano SLO models. I'm going to cover all four. So we have the clean, crunch, and drive channels of the actual Soldano that exists, and then we have one that is kind of a Headrush original, which is the extended range one. So just stay tuned and we'll cover a whole bunch of sounds. Thanks, guys. All right, so let's be honest. When most people think the Soldano SLO-100, they're thinking about the Overdrive channel, right? The one that sounds like this. Right, so that's what comes to mind for most people. They forget that there's a clean and a crunch channel, which is okay because that Overdrive channel is awesome. But I do want to take you through all three channels, and then also the additional, doesn't really exist in real life, extended range model on the Headrush pedal board. I have a theory that it might be based on something, but I have no way of proving it. So let's go over to the clean sounds, right? Let's do a quick rig rundown first, so you can see what's going on here, especially if you don't regularly watch my stuff. There is one block in particular that makes a big difference in my sound, which we'll get to very last. So we have the air filter, which by my expression pedal just acts as an auto wah. We have a clon and a tube screamer. Then the amp model, obviously. We have the graphic EQ, which is part of a solo boost with some frequencies and 3 decibels of gain being altered here. Just the default chorus on the Headrush. I actually like the default setting a lot. We have a 400 millisecond analog delay going on. Just a tiny little bit of plate reverb, 10% mix, not a whole bunch going on. And then for the impulse response, I am again, for the sake of not accidentally being part of piracy of anyone's products, I am using Leon Todd's impulse responses, which are really great. They're free. You can download them you can find them in the descriptions of all of his videos. They'll also be included with the downloadable rig package in the description of this video. In this particular case, we're using the LTTV Mix 2, which is greenbacks, and I like the high and low cut at just about 80 and 10K. So that is what is going on there. And all right, so let us hear this clean tone. But before we get to how I altered the stock, which the stock for Headrush's stock for everything on this amp model is just halfway up, except for the presence, which is at 30. I will say this is a pretty bright amp. But anyway, so I'm gonna try and talk less and just play more. But so this is the stock clean channel, just very Fendery. It's a 6L6 power tube amp, and it sounds like this. Okay. That is good and all, but let's switch over to mine. I like even my very clean amps, like the Fender Twin, if you kind of do the same thing to a Fender Twin, with the master just cooking, but not the amp really distorting. You know, I definitely want to remain clean. And I just lower the preamp if the amp model has one. Presence stays at 30, but you can see the preamp is down to 45, master at 75. And then basically, these are just Fender Magic 6 settings. You've got the treble at 60, mids at 30, bass at 20, and the bright switch remains off. And if that sounds like this, I think it's just a little more livelier than stock settings. Alright, so yeah, I mean, that's basically it. A clean tone is a clean tone. But there is a lot more that you can do with this clean channel. This clean channel can actually get really dirty and take you right into like modern rock or even like AC/DC tones, pop rock tones, that kind of thing. So, and my approach to that would be I would just increase the master even a little more, maybe kind of treat it a little bit like a a non-master volume amp, where you just got to turn up loud to get the goods out of it. But if you go with something like this, just leave everything the same and then have the preamp at 75 and the master just almost all the way cranked. You're now looking at this from the clean channel. So you can hear and see what I did there. It's a great thing if you're not into multiple amp models or channel switching. You just want one amp model where you can kind of do the ride the volume knob thing. That's awesome. You can even add some boosts to it. So if you throw the Klon in front of that, the tone and level at 100 on that guy. Right, now it's basically a pedal platform amp at that point because you can do your clean thing. Then you've got your volume all the way up, just basic amp tone. It's got, like I said, it's got like just an overdriven blackface kind of quality to it, which is awesome. Throw something like a Klon in front of it and just get the mids back in there and just a whole bunch of more gain, and you've got a great lead tone even, or just something really just a lot more rocking. Cool. So with the tube screamer, a little bit thinner now, but a lot less additional gain out of the tube screamer. That Klon model just cooks, especially when you crank it up to 100. It's boosting out so much volume, which in turn just drives the front of an amp model so much harder, which is great. It's just two different flavors. But anyway, so it's a clean thing that can do a dirty thing, and that's the clean channel of the SLO. Moving over on to the crunch channel. Let's go to stock settings before I show you anything else here. Stock settings sound like this. Again, everything halfway up. Bright off, presence 30. To me, there's a much more compression, there's a squishier feel in there. Great sound. It's not terrible at stock settings. what you kind of hear is that the crunch channel almost kind of picks up where an overdriven clean channel left off, is the best way I can describe it. But let's get into changing some of the settings. So this is what I have going on here. The preamp stays at 50, presence is 35, master volume 75, just like the clean channel. And then kind of took it easy on the treble because it does get pretty bright here. Mids at 65, bass at 60. This is a very different kind of monster from like a Marshall, where you're cranking mids and you're cutting a whole lot of bass out of them to help you sit in a band mix. This amp doesn't really work that way. These controls are a lot more active, where part of the whole Marshall thing is, if you ever get to mess with real older Marshalls, the EQs, the tone stack doesn't really do a whole lot if you go to one extreme or the other. It's not all that different from one end to the other, but you definitely hear a difference. So, which is why I don't need to add as many mids from the amp, especially because I would run the crunch as an always boosted by something kind of thing, which will add more mids anyway. And you typically don't see me run bass settings this high on a Marshall or like a more traditional Fender type amp, only because they don't need it and they definitely don't benefit from it to me. Whereas this amp model does. The Soldano just has this great tightness and clarity, but also bloom in the low end. That is just, to me, really unique to it. So that is why you see bass at 60. And if you watch any of my stuff, you traditionally don't see me do that kind of thing. But anyway, so these are my settings versus stock. So you can hear a lot of junk frequencies cut out of there. Much more ready for a full band live mix. God, it just feels so good, that this amp model. Let's try those boosted really quickly. So with the Klon, I think this is too much, but let's hear it. Let's do some kind of palm muting stuff. For what is essentially a crunch or like rhythm channel to me, it's just a little bit too much with the Klon. I like the Tube Screamer better. But Alex, it doesn't sound as fat as the Klon did. Yeah, you're right, and that's what's gonna make it a much better live sound for you, which I try to base almost everything on this channel around in a full band live context. I'm not into the whole bedroom recording ambient player kind of thing. I like to play live and see bands play live and hear loud guitars, whether they're coming out of a modeler or if it's real amps or whatever you're doing. So that is that's kind of what I go for with everything I do on this channel. So you get it. It's a great crunch channel. Let's get to the one everybody wants to hear anyway. So you've got the drive, and again, let's start at stock settings real quick. Right here. Everything halfway up again except presence at 30, but it switches off. tons and tons of gain, a very round tone, a lot more bass in this sound, a lot more compression, a lot more gain. It feels and sounds awesome, even at stock settings, but, you know, we just can't ever leave anything alone, right? But basically, I lower the preamp right down to 30%, and put the master up to 75 again. Two schools of thought on the Soldano for me. Kind of crank one or the other. I don't really go for a crank the preamp and the master volume on this amp model. I just don't think it gives you the best results. I think you lose a little bit of the clarity that this amp model is known for. Go for one or the other. In my case, I like the squishier feel of having a cooking power amp section, and having just a little bit of a brighter and thinner sounding preamp section. But anyway, treble 55, mid 65. Do cut the bass on this one a little bit. Now this says mod as opposed to bright on the other two channels, but it's a bright switch. Again, basically, and honestly, the higher you have the gain on this amp, on the Overdrive channel, the less you'll hear this particular mod switch. But anyway, so at my settings, it sounds like this. I know that same riff over and over. It does. I know when I watch videos, it helps me compare things when I hear kind of the same thing played, and a combination of like tight chuggy rhythms and big open chords. That to me says more about sounds than a bunch of, you know, up and down the neck kind of noodling stuff, which is also why you don't see me doing a ton of that on this channel. But anyway, so great sound. So the reason the preamp is this low to begin with is because I'm going to boost this amp model. The Klon, again, I think is a little bit too much at its current settings. So it is not my boost of choice, but it sounds like this. But Alex, that sounds awesome. It's so fat. Yeah, but not in a live setting. And then with the Tube Screamer, this is my weapon of choice for boosting this amp. So. Yeah, so tightens up the bass, and you could say the sound is a little thinner and brighter when using the Tube Screamer, but this is what helps me in a band with another guitar player, a key player, bass, a really loud drummer. This is what helps me find my place in the mix, rather than interfere in everyone else's territory as well. So, yeah, that to me is the Overdrive channel sound. Yeah, just great sound. I have one more preset in this rig for you, and it's just lead, which is the Overdrive channel with a graphic EQ and the delay on and the tube screamer all at once, and that sounds like this. Alright, and I'll stop there. Anyway, that's about all I've got to say. I mean, just what a fantastic amp model. Headrush really did a great job on all four of these. So speaking of which, let's get to the fourth one. Probably my favorite of them all, because it's just so over the top. But if you do a couple things to it, it's pretty manageable. And that's the extended range, right? So doing all the same things in this rig, same impulse response, same reverb, same tube screamer settings, everything. Let's turn that off first. It's, tube amp emulation right here. Let's go to those stock settings, which I'm not a giant fan of. This doesn't sound good if you're a first-time Headrush user, especially with stock cabs. This sound just doesn't work, but here it is. Yeah, I remember turning on the Headrush the first time and hearing that amp model through like the vintage 30 cab sim. No concept of this power tube emulation EQ thing, no concept of good impulse responses, and yeah, so just with me turning off that tube power amp emulation, right, not a big fan. So let's go back and turn that all back on. Okay, so much better. Back to that. I remember downloading the Tracy Guns like rig pack, which it was one of the original things that got me into the Headrush. Was not his "How do you Headrush" video from Headrush, but how many times can I say Headrush in 2 minutes? But he did kind of like a rig rundown thing with, I think, PM Tuck TV, so one of those YouTube channels, right? I think he was being interviewed by Dagan. But he was showing off his Headrush pedal board, and I was like, oh man, this is so cool. Look at that touch screen and all this stuff. I downloaded his Headrush rig pack, and he uses the extended range Soldano. He shows it in the video. And he's got the gain set to 86 on his stock patch. On his extended range SLO thing. It's insane. It was something along these lines. It was like 86 right here. Presence was up quite a ways. Master was at 50. Treble, mid, all these things were up quite a ways. Remember, he had the bass way down. And it was something like this, right? And it just... which is awesome and all, but not through the stock vintage 30 cab sim. It just did not sound good. So I've learned to work with this amp model quite a bit. So anyway, on to my own settings, and let's turn the tube screamer off first. And so basically I'm running the gain pretty low. Forgot if I already showed all of this, but bass 65, mid 67, treble 40, master 55, presence 20, and gain 30. And that sounds like this. this amp model almost feels like someone modded like a depth control into it after the preamp section to add like undistorted bass, which is always awesome. I love that feature on like the 5150 amp. But anyway, so I would typically always run this boosted, and hear how much gain is still in there at 30 versus the 86% on Tracy Guns' rig. There's still a ton of gain at 30% going on. But let's boost that with a Tube Screamer. This is kind of where I ride this amp. Yeah, that to me is a fantastic sound. This is actually the sound that I'm using right now, just running into the return of my JCM 2000 instead of doing the whole 4-cable method thing right now. I tried it, I did it at our docking show, and it takes too long to set up, so I'm kind of shelving the whole 4-cable method as a live solution thing. There's too much cabling. It just takes too long to set up and pack up, so I stopped all of that. But anyway, I built a clean channel into this. This is just the SLO clean channel from before. All right, some flange. Because flanger is awesome. I got some chorus. All right, let's hear that on the clean. Cool. So that is that. I think I've pretty much shown you what I wanted to show you. These amp models are awesome. Be sure to download these rigs from the description below. Rigs are always going to be free for me. I'm never ever going to charge you. I'm always going to try and use free impulse responses so I can share those with you too. And I'll try to stay, in fact, I will stay away from stock Hobsons. So thanks for watching my first video of 2022, and I hope you got a lot out of this.